Welcome to another edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with Mike Lubie, and thrilled to be here on NoFilter.net, Caffeine TV. It turns out, Lubie, we discovered, lo and behold, that either we're reading the numbers completely wrong and incorrectly. We're like Mario Cristobal trying to look at the play clock and saying, oh, well, let me see. I got 35 seconds. I only got to kill 33. What should I do? Why don't I run the ball? Take a chance that my guy might fumble. And then subsequently give up 74 yards through the air to a quarterback who's been a stiff the entire ball game and lose a game to Georgia Tech, one of the lower entries in the ACC, and blow my entire season all at once. That's it. It gets back to CEOs of companies, too. I mean, we were thinking about this earlier this morning, where and this was very popular in the radio business, especially, which we were in for many, many years. And over the years, you were going to encounter a couple of these type of meetings where the CEO of the company, in this case, our last stop was iHeartRadio, iHeartMedia, and the CEO was a guy named Bob Pittman.
Yes.
And Pittman had a great reputation in the business, except that if you really looked at his resume, he had buried more franchises than Mike Tannenbaum. He had iHeartMedia $30 billion in debt. They were swimming in a sea of red ink, the likes of which we haven't seen since Sam Bankman-Fried's investors. By the way, that girlfriend on the stand. Whew,
I love how pissed
that's going to be a tough one to overcome. I don't know what kind of legal help that Bankman-Fried has. I hope he's not dealing with a public defender. Some guy that looks like he just slept in the trunk of his car with a tacky jacket on, as if he had, opened up a used car lot somewhere just on the outskirts of town, maybe outside of Las Vegas. They're selling you some tires on your way back to L.A. But anyway, I mean, the CEO used to have these mass meetings, and they would call everybody in there, and they would tell you for about 20 minutes how wonderful it was to have a collection of talent so creative and so dedicated and so likely to put us over the top that it doesn't matter that we're trillions of dollars in debt. I know you guys are going to help us make it. It was like listening to Joel Osteen as he was telling Nick Wallenda, don't worry about the win, Nick. Don't worry about the win. And then they shoot back, they pan back to Joel Osteen. He's on the side of the cliff there making out with Nick Wallenda's wife. As this poor tightrope is shaking over what? I mean, you're talking about the Grand freaking Canyon, for God's sake. Unbelievable. So, you knew it was phony baloney. And then they would have the shill guy that was also the number one DJ or whatever. He was the only guy that was actually making any money and had a 5-year secure contract. Yep. And so he would pose the question, or not even the question, just this leading the witness sort of thing where he says, gee, Bob, you've accomplished a lot since you've been the CEO of this company in a short period of time, overcoming many obstacles. Would you say it's fair to assume that the direction of this company and all of the people in this room is a fairly positive one? And Pittman, then respond, well, thank you very much, Doc, for asking that question. Meanwhile, they're carrying people, producers, guys that are scrambling to make a living, that have the dream of being in this business and see it as this just wonderful ride all the way to the top. They're being carried out in body bags to the parking lot to directly go to their cars, which are being repossessed as this is taking place. This is corporate management. And the reason I bring this up is we're still trying to figure out and gather a position on this whole Mario Cristobal thing as we analyze what to do with North Carolina laying 3.5 against the University of Miami. Was that a roundabout way of getting there, Louie? I think
There's
it was.
always a gambling angle. It took you 10 minutes to get there.
But here's the real gamble. And we often profess this, and it is absolutely true. And we were also advising our degenerate friends in the audience to just every morning, instead of, fooling yourself that, hey, you know what, I'm a great gambler. I tell you what, I might be on a 17-game losing streak, but I really know what the fuck I'm doing. Just stand in front of the mirror as I am staring into the camera right now and say to yourself, I'm a loser.
Exactly.
And I'm not what I appear to be.
Just accept it.
Accept it. You're a loser. It's called gambling, not winning. And you're a loser. And then on top of that, beyond the money that you actually lose making wagers on a regular basis, the bets that you don't make are the most mind-boggling, most difficult things, biggest obstacles that you will ever have to overcome. And the case in point being this, because we often say, Luby, what? That you should listen and be able to observe and interpret the signs from the gods of gambling. No?
Yes. Yes.
This probably is the most critical thing. Never mind bankroll, never mind handicapping acumen, never mind your overall knowledge of sports, which is computer like, and you're able to go ahead and make a line that even the line makers look at and go, wow, how'd you come up with that number? That's a good one. You can have all of the mathematical expertise that you want, be an expert at sabermetrics and analytics and all of these other things, but you can't necessarily handicap a 50 to 1 shot out of what would be commonly referred to as just basic, simple logic. You have to learn how to read the signs. And sometimes you will get those signs, which Lubie and I did with the Arizona Diamondbacks, although we failed to not only recognize the signs, but we failed to act in any kind of rational and or reasonable and profit motivated fashion. And here's the thing. The first time I went to a racetrack, Lubie, and you know this story, but it happens to be true. And I should have seen right then and there what my fate was going to be. Two friends and I go to Roosevelt Raceway. We were in high school at the time on Long Island in New York. And we go to Roosevelt Raceway, which was harness racing, believe it or not, at that time, what was a very prominent sport. I mean, they would draw like 10, 15,000 out there to Roosevelt for the crowd, a Friday night card. And we go out there and we were pooling a $2 wager between three guys, 67 cents a piece. Comparable to the times, maybe that would be like betting a 20 today. That's possible. All right. So we're pulling this. We're kids. We don't really have a lot of money. And we're more than happy. It has enticed us and increased the excitement factor of watching these races by immeasurable proportions. So we hit the get out race, the last race on the card. We hit an exacta, and we get back like $67 for our deuce, and we couldn't believe it. And we were just overwhelmed with joy and euphoria. And we go out feeling this sensational high. We hadn't even started smoking weed yet. We weren't even doing drugs. Our drug was the adrenaline that you got from A, winning, and B, being at a sporting event.
Yeah.
And we go out to the parking lot, Louie, and sure enough, my friend had borrowed his mother's car, a brand new Chevrolet Impala with white with a red interior. It was a spectacular car. It would be a classic. It would be something that you would see in a car show today, except for the fact that it was burnt to ash by the time we got out to the parking lot, because the guy I brought along, of course, was smoking a cigarette, which people really didn't do that were in our circle of friends. And he left an ash on the back seat, apparently, and with the window cracked a small piece. That ignited, caught fire. And so we had to explain to my friend Cliff's mother, we're okay, but we won't be bringing the car back tonight. Now, what was the sign there? Gods of Gambling. They gave you your greatest victory, one of the most thrilling moments I've ever had in the sporting life that I've lived. And, your initial bet, I mean, it was better than sex for the first time, Lubie, which was to come shortly thereafter. But nonetheless, the highest of highs. And you should have seen that the car is torched. All of your dreams up in smoke. I should have known to get out then, huh?
Yes,
you know how far ahead I would be lifetime if I got out right then and there. Now, what fun would it be? The answer to that would be none. So we're looking at the chances of the Miami Marlins, our hometown team, of winning the World Series, which we figured were 0.0, Mr. Blutarski.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, sub-zero. There was no chance. That they had nothing going with pitching. Their offense had been up and down, suspect. I mean, they were one of the lowest scoring teams in Major League Baseball all year long. They just happened to win all of these one-run games, which is something that you would think, well, over the course of time, those things tend to balance out.
Yep.
But they didn't balance out this year. And that propelled the Marlins into the playoffs, the postseason, with little chance of winning the World Series. And sure enough, they're sitting there and they're 50 to 1. So I happen to look and say, who else is 50 to 1? Thinking nobody is. The Arizona Diamondbacks. It's the bets you don't make, the chances you don't take that will ruin you psychologically. I mean, it's so damaging that you're thinking, wait a minute. One of these 50 to 1 shots is probably live. And we know who it isn't, Lubie.
Yeah, it's not the Marlins.
It is not the Miami Marlins.
No, and the Diamondbacks were playing. I know they struggled down the stretch, but they had their moments, and their pitching lined up in a way the Marlins didn't. which is what we're saying.
And they have the ex-Marlin factor, which is huge in the
They
postseason.
do.
It really is. The
Yeah.
one win that the Minnesota Twins got in their series, which they've now been eliminated from by the Houston Astros, Pablo Lopez. Connection?
Yes.
Former Miami Marlin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Evaldi for the Texas Rangers. Brilliant. Strange looking guy out there, isn't he? I mean, the way he kind of walks around the mound, it looks like he's got a whole nother agenda going on. But nonetheless, I mean, very effective. Nathan Evaldi. Connection? Former Marlin.
Yes.
And you have Zach Gallen, who's probably the best pitcher. I mean, you could say that, right? Cy Young Award candidate last year, and this year he comes back and also has a real good season. Zach Gallen.
Yes.
Who was he traded for? Was that
It was Jazz. He
Jazz
was
Chisholm?
It's the trade that seemed like it was a win for both sides.
Yeah.
That right now is not a.
So far,
open
Gallen, I
both
mean, is
sides.
getting the best of that. I mean, that's not necessarily looking like the chief for Robert Parrish. I mean, for the Joe Barry Carroll, and
Yeah,
also
yeah.
the rights to Kevin McHale go with the chief to the Boston Celtics. And now, well, one of the worst ever, right? Lou Brock, Ernie
Yes.
Broglio, Nolan
Mhm.
Ryan, Jim Fregosi. Not quite in that category by any stretch of the imagination, because
No, no. I
Chisholm
mean, Jazz
still could
is
blossom.
solid. Yeah, he's still solid. He's just not great. Whereas
Yeah.
Zach Gallen is great.
But you put a left-hander in there against Jazz Chisholm, and this guy is up the track, my friends. And trailing the field, I mean, he hit like a $120 or something against left-handers. You cannot be a superstar under those circumstances,
Very
I
true.
would say. But anyway, how do we not take a shot on Arizona? It was right there in front of us, 50-1. Now, what would you do? The question is this, and we are wimps. We are betting pussies. So is it wrong? I mean, is there some kind of demon inside you that is so hideous, so horrific, that you actually would think about hedging in the championship series with Arizona, now that they've qualified after sweeping the Dodgers, and they await the winner of the Philadelphia-Atlanta Braves series for the right to go to the World Series? So you're still a long way from home, my friends.
My thing,
A
like
long
if
way
you're
from home.
hedging to still not win, like, you're
Right.
gonna
You could still lose the bet, which is the way that most of this stuff goes. That's why they're 50-1.
exactly.
We had another example of the signs from the gods of gambling, all pointing in one direction. When we went to the Kentucky Derby many years back, and we're on the scene there, and the day that we find a way to sneak into this place called the Gold Room, which we had no business being in, and we're up there with Phyllis George is sitting there with the former governor of Kentucky, and Dan Issel is in the booth there, and all of these dignitaries, and we're talking to the agent for the jockey, Calvin Burrell, a Kentucky legend, a hard boot, just extraordinaire. This guy was still riding at like 70 years old, fit as a fiddle, man. He looked like he could go 12 at De La Hoya, and sure enough, well, he might have to drop might put on a couple of pounds. But nonetheless, I mean, and this guy tells us he's riding a horse called Rachel Alexandra on the Friday card in the Kentucky Oaks. This horse is going to romp, and the agent tells us about everything but his mount in the Derby, which is Mind That Bird. That day, I'm doing some radio work on the backstretch there. Who walks by me but this guy, Wooly, who was the trainer of Mind That Bird. And I remember thinking to myself, what the fuck is that guy doing back here? How did he get back here? Who did he bribe to even walk out into the panic area, the backstretch area on Kentucky Derby Day? And then somebody pointed out, well, he has that horse that's being shipped in by like U-Haul from New Mexico. No shot to win the Derby. And this was a known kiss of death. I should have immediately known.
Yep, the
That,
other way.
okay, all signs are pointing where, Lubie? To Mind That Bird. And then I see a feature on the horse when I'm waiting at the hotel to go to the track that afternoon and take in the Kentucky Derby. And who's the feature on? Mind That Bird.
That bird.
Do we bet a dime on him?
Not
Not 1 cent.
1 cent.
I still hear the track announcer on the rail, as if a flash of bolting lightning. It's Calvin Burrell and Mind That Bird. 50-something to 1. So we whiffed on this. Are we pussies for considering hedging if we had Arizona in this thing? And this is only in a mind bet. Think about how sick
Yeah,
that
we
is.
don't have the bet.
We don't have anything. We have nothing on it, and we're worried about hedging. If you're at that point, people, you're in a pile of trouble. All right, we want to send regards. Mary Lou Retton. I was reading Mike Vaccaro's column in the
Yeah,
New York
yeah.
Post about Mary Lou Retton battling some weird form of pneumonia and clinging to life right now in a hospital. Apparently uninsured, which is kind of weird to
Oh,
think of.
jeez.
And so had to get a GoFundMe page going, or one of her daughters did, and fortunately, a lot of people responded. But 84 Olympic Games, man, she really stole it, the LA Games, and there were a lot of great. Vaccaro was referencing all of the great athletes that emerged in 1984, either from the Olympics and/or from professional sports, including Michael Jordan. You had Dan Marino coming into the National Football League that year. You had just an incredible number of sensational athletes make their appearance on the scene. Greg Louganis was great in the Olympic Games there, and yet Mary Lou Retton stole everybody's heart and imagination. And then, it was a very enjoyable presence when she was even a commentator for many, many years on TV. Well, what wasn't she selling? I think she was selling everything that Travis Kelsey isn't selling right now. Imagine when you're selling a vaccine. That's when you've hit the Q rating where you could pretty much sell everything or anything at that point, right? All right. So anyway, Mary Lou Retton, we wish her all the best as we make our exit here on today's edition. Just remember, people, remember to read the signs from the gods of gambling. Correct? Read the signs. I also, I want to close out with this because we were, trying to figure out what song would be appropriate about betting Arizona, and it would be something maybe to do with superstition. And I didn't realize this, that my entire life. I mean, this is another one of those songs that you thought you knew, and you've been singing the wrong lyrics your whole life. I thought it was "There is superstition writing on the wall." But it's nothing like that, right? Stevie
Oh.
Wonder, what was he thinking? What drug was he on when he wrote "Very superstitious writings on the wall"? What was the other line on that? Nobody ever knows that. The
Very
second and third line of the song.
superstitious ladder about to fall.
What is that?
Means.
Oh, because if you walk under a ladder there, that's
Yes,
like a
it's not
superstitious thing.
superstitious,
Okay,
yeah.
that makes more sense than I thought when I originally saw the lyric. But I never knew I never knew that was the second line of the song. Did you?
I never heard that ladder.
I didn't even know the first line. It's the same thing. Oye, como va? Nobody knows the second line, right? Oye, como va? And I'm thinking, what music school allowed the guy to graduate that wrote that song when he was writing lyrics like, how do you even write that? Nobody knew it was Mi Ritmo, the second line of that song. But anyway, follow superstitions. Take a shot on those 50-1 shots. And if you get to this point and you're hedging, you are a weak and a pathetic human being. That's what I was thinking when I thought about hedging on a mine bet is probably as sick as it gets in degeneracy. All right, we have to run. Thanks so much for being with us. North Carolina to stomp all over the University of Miami. Mario Cristobal, that is inexcusable. I hate to dump on a guy, right? I mean, look, we all make mistakes, but that, not knowing the basic fundamentals of your own job, how can you then yell at a kid, grab a kid like you were Bobby Knight and say, "Hey, why? I said cover two."
Exactly.
And the kid's got to fire back. Take a knee, Mario.
Yeah, exactly, coach.
Take a fucking knee.
Exactly.
I think it cost them their season. I think North Carolina romps in that game, so you may as well go ahead and unload on to win that one. Getting 3 and a hook on the road against North Carolina. Pretty good team. Just shellacked my Syracuse Orange. All right, we'll see you next time on the morning briefing from Mike Lubie. It's always a pleasure, my friend. I'm Jeff DeForest, and we'll see you next time here on NoFilter.net.